was easy.
Okay, that's too loud.
Okay, there's some headphones for you.
Oh, thank you.
Elijah.
Nice.
Okay, it's gonna get loud again.
Okay.
If you reduce your level on your board, that should alleviate some of it. One, two, oh, you there?
From WAMU 88.5 at American University in Washington, welcome to the Kojo Nandi Show, connecting your neighborhood with the world. Later in the broadcast, from the streets of Pyongyang to an American college campus, a preteen boy escapes North Korea on his own and builds a new life in the United States. But first, the DC Jazz Festival is now over a decade old. The goal, bringing jazz to new audiences and old alike at venues around the city. The festival this year includes a local jazz artist who's making a splash, both with his traditional sound as well as his fusion band, inspired by none other than the late Chuck Brown, godfather of go-go. Joining us to discuss all this is Sunny Sumter. She is the executive director of the DC Jazz Festival. Sunny Sumter, good to see you again.
It's wonderful to be here, Kojo.
Before we introduce our other guests, tell us a little bit about the highlights of this year's DC Jazz Festival.
We have taken over the city. We are in 21 neighborhoods, 40 venues, 150 performances. We're bringing the very best of jazz, including John Scofield, Jack DeJohnette. We're bringing Esperanza Spalding, the great Femi Kuti, son of Fela, Common. We've got Nicholas Payton, Gretchen Parlato. Oliver Lake is coming with the Bohemian Jazz Masterworks Orchestra. Oh my goodness, Snarky Puppy, which is sold out. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have mentioned that.
But we had Femi Kuti on this broadcast last year, and I had the pleasure of emceeing Etienne Charles, the trumpet player, when he appeared at the Hamilton during the DC Jazz Festival last year. The festival takes place at venues around the city. What's the idea behind that?
The idea is that we want to meet people where they are. I mean, we think that some of our greatest phenomenal musicians happen to be residents of the DMV. And so the idea is we want to celebrate jazz in every pocket of the city. We want to celebrate jazz in the nation's capital, and that's why we're one of the fastest growing jazz festivals in the country now.
Also joining us in studio is Elijah Jamal Balbed. He is a jazz artist, composer, tenor saxophone player, and founder of the Joe Go Project. He's also playing as part of the DC Jazz Festival. Elijah, thank you for joining us.
Hello, glad to be here.
Also in studio with us is Mark Meadows. He's a jazz keyboard player, also with the Joe Go Project. Mark, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And Eliot Seppa is a bass player. He's a jazz artist. He's part of the Joe Go Project. He's also performing in the DC Jazz Festival. Eliot, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Elijah, you're performing as a part of this jazz festival. You're from Silver Spring, Maryland. How did you become interested in jazz?
I got started playing jazz in high school. I attended Albert Einstein High School, which is actually where I met Eliot, the bass player. We've been playing jazz together now over 10 years, which is hard to believe. And I matriculated to Howard University, where I studied under Charlie Young and Fred Irby. And since then, I've been fortunate to be a part of the DC jazz community, and people like Sonny Sumter and Charlie Fishman and Willard Jenkins have really watched me grow. And so I'm fortunate that they've been so supportive of my endeavors. And when I got an opportunity to kind of continue the legacy of Chuck Brown, they were definitely all about it.
We'll talk later about Charlie Fishman and about Willard Jenkins and a little more about Sonny Sumter. But Eliot, you and Elijah, as he pointed out, went to high school together. You went to college together. Tell us a little bit about how you became a bass player and how the two of you started out and are still playing together.
Yeah, that's right. I actually started out studying classical music as a younger kid, and then when I went to high school, pretty much playing with this guy is what got me into jazz. And we had a great band director, Joan Racky, at Einstein High School. So those two people basically were huge influences on me back then.
Elijah, you've got a new album, Lessons from the Streets. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, Lessons from the Streets is my second album as a leader, and it's my homage to the DC jazz community and all of its wonderful people, mentors, venues, everything that shaped me as a musician today. I spent a lot of time in the trenches, sitting in with cats on U Street, Adams Morgan, in the city, and I really feel like it has impacted the musician that I've become.
Mark Meadows, how'd you hook up with this group?
Well, I'm a keyboardist in the DC jazz scene. I'm originally from Dallas, Texas, with a school in Baltimore, but quickly heard of the amazing scene that is the DC jazz scene and couldn't wait to get a part of it. And I actually think I met Elijah at Twins Jazz on a random gig, and since then he's been one of my favorite people to play with in DC.
That's Twins Jazz on U Street Northwest. Elijah, Eliot, Mark, can we hear something from this new album, Lessons from the Streets?
Sure you can. This will be our arrangement of the great Wayne Shorter's Infant Eyes.
Yes, indeed. Listening to Infant Eyes. Mark Meadows on keyboard, Eliot Seppa on bass, and Elijah Jamal Balbed on tenor saxophone. The composition Infant Eyes by the great Wayne Shorter. Didn't there used to be a vocal version of that by Doug and Gene Carn?
That's
called
right.
Infant Eyes? Yeah,
I should
remember
know that, should I?
You should know that since you're a vocalist yourself. The DC Jazz Festival, you can catch it from tomorrow, June 10th, through next Tuesday, June 16th, at venues throughout the city. You can catch Elijah Jamal Balbed tomorrow, Wednesday, June 10th, at 6 p.m. at the Kennedy Center's Millennium Stage. That is all a part of the DC Jazz Festival. This jazz festival used to be known as the Duke Ellington Jazz Festival. Sonny, can you tell us a little bit about the festival's history and where it is today?
Well, Charlie, the great Charles Fishman, manager of Dizzy Gillespie, was on the road with him for many years. And when he came back to home, he realized there was no major jazz festival here. So in 2004, he called on a few stakeholders in the city and say, hey, let's do this. And he got some seed money, and the rest is history. It started the first year with 12 concerts, and here we go, fast forward 11 years later. It's the DC Jazz Festival. I think around 2009, we decided to move from the Duke Ellington Jazz Festival to DC Jazz Festival.
Tell us a little bit about now Willard Jenkins and what he brings to the festival, because he's replacing Charlie Fishman. He's one of my favorite radio jazz announcers.
Well, he's a phenomenal air personality around jazz. He's also a great jazz journalist. He's
Mhm.
really well known. He's one of the international jazz ambassadors. And last year, our wonderful board of directors, I love them, so I'm going to definitely give a big shout out to them, decided that they wanted to really launch a national search for the best person who could replace Charlie, who had done such a phenomenal
ended
job
up being
for 10
Willard?
years. And it ended up being Willard after
Why
a
am I not
phenomenal
surprised?
search, because he is the real deal. And we've seen it. This year is our best festival yet. It's just full of great nuggets of jazz artists from old and young and all different aspects of the jazz umbrella and the jazz aesthetic. And I think he's done a fantastic job of bringing the entire world of jazz into the nation's capital.
Well, congratulations and good luck to you, Willard Jenkins. Elijah, you play jazz, but you also founded a fusion band. Tell us a little bit about the Joe Go project.
Right. Well, in 2011, I was blessed with the opportunity to work with the godfather of go-go, Chuck Brown, and continued to play gigs with him until he passed away the following year. And when he passed away, it was a heartbreak all over the city. But I really felt like I needed to do something to continue his legacy. And also, I just fell in love with go-go music from playing with him. So, and the Chuck Brown band, without Chuck, still works, but we weren't working as much. So I really craved the go-go beat. I say it's like an addictive drug. You just want more and more.
It
and more.
really is.
Because, yeah, I mean, once I started playing go-go, it's like I just kind of fell in love with it. And here I am now. I get to play with a few different go-go bands. And I've gotten to play with a few others like Backyard Band, which was a unique experience. But yeah.
Eliot, you're also part of the Go Joe project. What attracts you to mixing genres like this?
Well, I've always loved listening to hip hop and rock music, and more recently R&B and gospel and go-go and everything. And so it's to make a living as a musician, it's good to be down to play all types of music. So why not?
Well, let's talk to the kid from Texas, because Mark Meadows, I am pretty sure that before you came to this area, you did not know a whole lot about go-go.
Well, I have a unique situation in that I was actually proud to say that I was born in D.C.
Oh, okay.
I moved to Dallas when I was 5 and grew up in Dallas, but every single summer of my life, I would always spend my summers in the backyards of D.C.
Oh, so you know go-go.
So I know go-go.
without a doubt. Eliot, Elijah, we'd like to hear some of the Joe Go project music. Tell us a little bit about what we're now about to hear.
We're going to play another composition by a great jazz master, Benny Golson. This is our rendition of it. It's called Stablemates.
Okay, we're going to go into our break on this, but let's hear Stablemates with the Joe Go project. Welcome back. We're talking about the DC Jazz Festival with Sonny Sumter, Executive Director of the DC Jazz Festival. Elijah Jamal Balbed, he's a jazz artist, composer, tenor saxophone player, founder of the Joe Go Project. Eliot Seppa is a jazz artist, bass player, and part of the Joe Go Project. And Mark Meadows is a jazz keyboard player who's also a part of the Joe Go Project. The DC Jazz Festival starts tomorrow, June 10th, through next Tuesday, June 16th, at venues throughout the city. Several events and preview concerts are already underway. You can go to our website, kojoshow.org, and find out more about it. Sonny, can you talk about the creative ideas and the partnerships that have developed as a part of this festival?
Absolutely. We believe that jazz is for everyone. And so we've really, the creative producers that have really come together to support this is pretty phenomenal. Gio Russinelli and Luke Stewart, Capital Bop Loft series, they do these pop-up spaces, one of which is going to be at the Hex Warehouse. They're bringing Thundercat there and a number of other artists. They're one really special for our 20-something audience. We then have the East River Jazz Fest, which is in Wards 7 and 8. And those events are free. And the idea is that we want to bring jazz to that part of the city, that great part of the city.
And to new generations.
That's right. And I grew up on Morris Road, so I believe that that's certainly a great part of the city. And thanks to Bernard Gray, we're doing a great partnership there. We've got the Kennedy
Go
Center.
Big Bernard.
Yes. And then we've got Millennium Stage with the Kennedy Center. We've got the Yards, which is really important to us down at the Capitol Riverfront. And that's with Forest City and the Capitol Riverfront bid. And we're bringing Common and Femi Kuti and Esperanza Spalding and the Great Marshall Keys, DC's own, Sharon Clark and Soul Rebels, New Orleans own. And we're going to do a free concert, our gift to the city, on June 12th. And then a ticketed concert on the 13th. That's really reasonable. We want everybody to come on out for that. We've got the Hamilton Live, which is in partnership with Clyde's Restaurant Group.
Did you mention Bohemian Caverns?
I'm going to mention Bohemian because we love Umrao Brown and the great work he does there. And he's bringing Afro Horn with Transparent Productions and Nicholas Payton, and he's bringing Braxton Cook, a wonderful resident artist as well. It's just going to be a phenomenal mix.
And for more than 10 years, you've partnered with the Kennedy Center.
We have, and I did mention that a minute ago. We sure
Jazz
do.
Meets the Classics
Jazz
is now a
meets-
staple.
That's right. Paquito's actually bringing that to the Hamilton Live.
You
I should
are-
mention the National Gallery Vault 2 Sculpture Garden with George V. Johnson. That's going to be pretty spectacular.
You are also a jazz talent yourself. You're a jazz vocalist. I also remember first hearing you at a place it was then called the International Inn on Thomas Circle
That's
Northwest. That was about
right.
20 years
It
ago.
sure was. That wasn't 29. I'm 29
And
forever.
I said that was 20 years ago. You were
I
3
was
years
9.
old.
Yeah, that's right. That's
3 or
right.
4 years old.
So yes, I love the
Tell us about your musical education.
Well, I went to Howard University as well and cut my teeth with Jerry Allen and Grady Tate and really had a phenomenal experience there and went on to record 3 records with Keter Betts and
The great
Larry
Peter
Willis
Betts.
and Jimmy Cobb and traveled a lot around the world and really enjoyed an amazing career. What I loved was being a resident artist and coming back here and having so much love, playing with Alan Johnson, Nasser Abadeh, and James King, and so many others. It was really an opportunity for me to really hone my craft as an artist. And after my kids are grown, I'm coming back.
You're coming back. Where does your passion for education come from?
Well, it really is because when I grew up in Southeast, in Anacostia, one of the things that we didn't have was a lot of jazz music. And I fell in love with it listening to Sarah Vaughan and Ella with my grandmother. And I always wanted it to be more accessible to everybody. So when Charlie asked me to come on board to work with partnerships 8 years ago to the Fest, it's been a wonderful experience because I believe that if you teach kids at a young age about this music, they become tomorrow's jazz fans. And that truly is my mission and part of the Jazz Festival's mission.
Speaking of education, Elijah, you were artist in residence at the Bohemian Caverns and New Street, which we just talked about. You did a year-long residency at the Strathmore. So there's been a lot of education there. How did that help you develop as a musician?
Yes, sir. Well, that all ties into the lessons from the streets because it's, again, people like Omar Brown at Bohemian Caverns and Betty Scott at the Strathmore who really saw something in me and gave me opportunities like that. The Jogo Project was actually debuted at Strathmore at the end of my residency there. And they've had the Chuck Brown band there and I think Trouble Funk, but it's always great to bring go-go music and jazz music to places that it might not always be at.
At my 15th anniversary celebration at this station, we were happy to have the Chuck Brown band performed there also.
And I was there.
You were there
Yes,
that
sir.
night, as a matter of fact. We're running out of time very quickly, but I'd like to ask you to perform one more tune for us as we go into the next break.
Of course, this will be the title track off of my very first album entitled Checking In.
Eliot Jamal Balbed, Eliot Seppa, and Mark Meadows, the Jogo Project. Eliot Jamal Balbed on saxophone, Eliot Seppa on bass, Mark Meadows on keyboard, and Sonny Sumter, Executive Director of the DC Jazz Festival. Always a pleasure.
Always, always, Coach. Thank you.
We're going to take a short break. As one of the more isolated and secretive countries in the world, rumors tend to swirl around North Korea, its leaders, and its practices. While they range from almost laughable to the morally repugnant, it's hard to sort fact from fiction. And with few escapees making their way to the West, it's somewhat rare to hear from them firsthand. But today, we learn what it was like growing up under one of the most secretive regimes in the modern world. From Joseph Kim, he is the author of Under the Same Sky, From Starvation in North Korea to Salvation in America. The book is written with Stefan Talty. Joseph Kim, thank you so much for joining us in studio.
Thank you so much for having me.
Let's start in North Korea with your childhood. What are your early memories of your family, and what were those years like?
I would say my early memories, I think I was very happy. I mean, I had really good family. I didn't have to worry about food when I was 4 or 5. So I do remember playing with my friends in the neighborhood, just being goofy around, just running around. But then after the famine, when it started,
Great Famine started in 1994,
I would say in 1995, 6.
95, 6.
And that's where we started not being able to kid anymore, I think.
But up until that time, you were having what you felt was a normal childhood.
Yes, definitely.
What happened to your parents and your sister in the Great Famine or after the Great Famine that left you living on the streets alone?
As a result of the Great Famine, my father died of starvation when I was 12 years old. And right after, my mom and my sister decided to go to China to look for food and possibly earn some money to return to provide the means to survive.